Good day, everyone. My name is Jade Downing from BSHM 3A, and I'm going to discuss about the tourism public sector in Chapter 6. So the learning objectives would be identify the various government agencies involved in the development and promotion of the tourism industry as well as their functions. Next is describe the relationships of these agencies with one another. And lastly, explain the possibility of public service as a career in the industry. The topic outline would be Department of Tourism or DOT, Philippine Tourism Authority, Intramuros Administration, National Parks Development Committee, National Historical Institute, National Certificate for Culture and Arts, the Philippine Convention and Visitors Corporation, Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, National Economic Development Authority, Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, Department of Environmental and Natural Resources, Department of Labor and Employment, Department of Public Works and Highways, Department of Transportation and Communication, Department of Trade and Industry, Philippine Economic Zone Authority, Department of Foreign Affairs, Department of Interior and Local Government, Bureau of Food and Drugs, Bureau of Customs, the Philippine Coast Guard, Professional Regulatory Board for Customs Broker, Nayong Pilipino Foundation, and Tourism Enterprise Zone Authority. So this chapter deals with the particular government agencies directly involved in the promotion of tourism in our country. Several allied government agencies may also be included in this chapter, as these agencies, though not directly involved in the promotion of tourism, tend to provide a substantial contribution to the efficient operation of the tourism industry. So, the Department of Tourism. The Department of Tourism was created by the virtue of Presidential Decree number 189. It is the primary policy making, planning, programming, coordinating, and administrative entity of the executive branch of government in the development of the tourism industry, both domestic and international. So the DOT has the following major functions. First is to supervise all activities of the government which concern tourism. Second is effect on removal of unnecessary barriers to travel, the integration and simplification of travel regulations as well as their efficient, fair, and courteous enforcement to assure expeditious and hospitable reception of all visitors. Then, formulate an integrated program of promotion and publicity designed to attract and induce people abroad to visit the Philippines, patronize things which are Philippine made, and to enhance the prestige of the Filipino and the Republic. Then, review all tourism projects which may involve loans from government financial institutions before said institutions may take action of them and approve all tourism projects and firm applying for tax incentives under the Export Incentives Act, as amended by Presidential Decree number 92 before the Board of Investments. They take action in them, represent the government in all such conferences and meetings concerning tourism and travel, and discharge such responsibilities of the government as may arise from realities, agreements, and other commitments on tourism and travel. Then, accredit travel agents, tour operators, and tour guides. Then, classified and accredited hotels, resorts, inns, motels, hotels, restaurants, and other related facilities and services which cater to foreign and domestic tourists, and in addition, formulate suitable standards to ensure that the highest possible standards are met, reasonable fees and charges are made, and that services are given with honesty, courtesy, and efficiency, and perform such other functions as may be provided by the law. Philippine Tourism Authority. Presidential Decree 564 on October 2, 1974 was enacted devising the Charter of the Philippine Tourism Authority, which was originally created under the Presidential Decree number 189 dated May 11, 1973. Strengthening the Philippine Tourism Authority was needed in order to be in a better position to effectively unify and integrate related activities and services of both government and private entities pertaining to tourism development projects. Travel tax collection is PTA's main source of income. Travel tax is a levy imposed by the government on individuals. citizens of the Philippines, permanent resident aliens who have stayed in the country for more than a year, who are leaving the country irrespective of the place where the air ticket is issued as provided for by PD 1183 as amended by PD 1205, Batas Pambansa BLG 38 and EO 283 on travel tax. Payment of travel taxes are coursed through the Bureau of Internal Revenue. Intramuros Administration. For 400 years, Intramuros has been a priceless heritage of the past for the city of Manila and a major historical landmark of the Philippines. In order to preserve and enhance the historical value of Intramuros, a National Historical Consciousness Program demands its restoration, development, and maintenance, and for this purpose, hence Presidential Decree of number 1616 on April 10, 1979, creating the Intramuros Administration was charged with such vital role and responsibility. The Intramuros Administration shall be responsible for the orderly restoration and development of Intramuros as a monument of the Hispanic period of the Philippine history. It shall also ensure that the general appearance of Intramuros shall conform the Philippine-Spanish architecture of the 16th to the 19th century. National Parks Development Committee. The National Parks Development Committee was created originally as an executive committee on January 14, 1963 for the development of the Quezon Memorial, Luneta, and other national parks. It was later designated as the National Parks Development Committee. Despite an attempt to transfer it to the Bureau of Forest Development, Department of Natural Resources, the NPDC has remained under the office of the President. National Historical Institute. Presidential Decree Number 260, dated August 1, 1973, has declared certain sites, churches, and places as national shrines, monuments, and landmarks, and placed their preservation, restoration, and/or reconstruction under the supervision and control of the National Historical Institute in collaboration with the Department of Tourism. Hence, the National Historical Institute was given the right to declare historical and cultural sites and edifices as national shrines, monuments, and landmarks. By virtue of Presidential Decree of Number 1, dated September 24, 1972, the National Historical Institute has been given the authority for the preservation, restoration, and/or reconstruction of several historical sites and buildings. So, all the monetary contribution and the donations to the archives of the National Historical Institute are tax-exempt and deductible from the taxable income of the donor. Today, the National Historical Institute continues to be the lead government agency where matters of history and culture are concerned. It continues to conceive programs and projects for the public's appreciation of history, educating the Filipino masses on the lessons of the past and perpetuating the memory of our illustrious heroes. Aside from commemorating historical events and personages, conducting the research and publishing scholarly works, the Institute also maintains historical sites all over the country and is engaged in the preservation of these sites as well as the relics and memorabilia found in these places. It maintains a conservation center manned by personnel well-trained for the job and also provides training services and technical assistance to both government and private sectors. National Center for Culture and Arts. Republic Act 7356 has been enacted in order to create the mandate of the National Center for Culture and Arts. Its functions are as follows: formulate policies for the development of culture and the arts. Next is to coordinate and implement the overall policies and program of attached agencies on the development of culture and arts as stated under Executive Order Number 80. Next is administer the National Endowment Fund for Culture and the Arts. Encourage artistic creation within a climate of artistic freedom. Develop and promote the Filipino national culture and arts. And lastly is to pursue Filipino cultural heritage. By virtue of the Republic Act 8492, the National Museum has now been detached from the National Commission of Culture and Arts and has now been placed solely for budgetary purposes under the Office of the President. The primary purpose of the National Museum is to acquire documents, preserve, exhibit, and foster scholarly study and appreciation of works of art specimens and cultural and historical artifacts. The Philippine Convention and Visitors Corporation. The Philippine Convention and Visitors Corporation is a non-stock, non-profit government corporation attached to the Department of Tourism, tasked with promoting the country as an ideal tourism, convention, and incentive travel destination. Its Conventions and Incentives Travel Unit provides comprehensive information, assistance, and guidance to meeting planners and incentive travel organizers to seek an ideal venue for their meetings and incentive groups. Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas. Presidential Decree Number 520 issued on July 23, 1974 empowers the Bangko Sentral ng Pilipinas, formerly Central Bank of the Philippines, to organize a corporation which will manage and administer the Philippine International Convention Center. National Economic Development Authority. The National Economic Development Authority is the country's independent economic development and planning agency. It is headed by the President as chairman of the NEDA board, with the Secretary of Socio-Economic Planning, concurrently NEDA Director, General as Vice Chairman. All the cabinet members as well as the Central Bank Governor are members of the NEDA Board. The National Economic Development Authority was created in pursuance of the goals of promoting the economic and social development and stability of the country. The NEDA may, in the discharge of its duties and functions, call upon any private person or representatives of the private sector for such views or advice as may be pertinent to any matter under its consideration. Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation. PAGCOR is a government-owned and controlled corporation existing under Presidential Decree Number 1869, issued on July 11, 1983 by President Ferdinand Marcos. Pertinent provisions and said enabling law read. Section 1. Declaration of the policy. It is hereby declared to be the policy of the state to centralize and integrate all games of chance not heretofore authorized by existing franchises or permitted by law in order to attain the following objectives: to be established and operate clubs and casinos for amusement and recreation, including sports, gaming booths, such as basketball, football, lotteries, etc., and such other forms of amusement and recreation, including games of chance, which may be allowed by law within the territorial jurisdiction of the Philippines, and which will minimize, if not totally eradicate, the evils, malpractices, and corruptions that are normally prevalent in the conduct and operation of gambling clubs and casinos without direct government involvement. So the PAGCOR is granted for a period of 25 years, renewable for another 25 years, the rights, privileges, and authority to operate and maintain gambling casinos, clubs, and other recreation or amusement places, sports, gaming pools, basketball, football, lotteries, etc., whether on land or sea, within the territorial jurisdiction of the Republic of the Philippines. Department of Environment and Natural Resources. As provided under Section 4 of Executive Order 192, the Department of the Environment and Natural Resources is mandated to the primary government agency responsible for the conservation, management, development, and proper use of the country's environment and natural resources, including those in reservations, watershed areas, and lands of the public domain, as well as the licensing, utilization, and regulation of all natural resources as may be provided by the law in order to ensure equitable sharing of the benefits derived therefrom for the welfare of the present and future generations of Filipinos. The DENR's mission is to be the dynamic force behind people's initiatives in the protection, conservation, and development and management of the environment through strategic alliances and partnerships, relevant policies and programs, and appropriate information technology towards sustainable development. Department of Labor and Employment. The following are the functions of the Department of Labor and Employment: enforce social and labor legislation to protect the working class and regulate the relations between the workers and his employers, formulate and recommend policies, plans, and programs for manpower development, training, allocation, and utilization, recommend legislation to enhance the material, social, and intellectual improvement of the nation's labor force. The next is to protect and promote the interests of every citizen desiring to work locally or overseas by securing for him the most equitable terms and conditions of employment and by providing social and welfare services. The next is to regulate the employment of aliens, including the enforcement of a registration or work permit system for such aliens. So formulate general guidelines concerning wage income policy. The next is to recommend necessary adjustments in wage structures with a view to developing wage system that is consistent with national economic and social development plans. provides for safe, decent, humane, and improved working conditions and environment for all workers, particularly with women and young workers. Maintaining harmonious, equitable, and stable labor relations system that is supportive of the national economic policies and programs. Uphold the right of workers and employers to organize and promote free collective bargaining as the foundation of the labor relations system. Then, lastly, is to provide and ensure the fair and expeditious settlement and disposition of labor and industrial disputes through collective bargaining, grievance machinery, conciliation, mediation, voluntary arbitration, compulsory arbitration as may be provided by law, and other modes that may be voluntarily agreed upon by the parties concerned. Department of Public Works and Highways. The Department of Public Works and Highways functions as the engineering and construction arm of the government tasked to continuously develop its technology for the purpose of ensuring the safety of all infrastructure facilities and securing for all the public works and highways as the highest efficiency and quality in construction. The DPWH is currently responsible for the planning, design, construction, and maintenance of infrastructure, especially the national highways, flood control and water resources development system, and other public works in accordance with national development objectives. The work of DPWH is very important, especially in providing land access to tourist destinations, sites, and service facilities. Department of Transportation and Communication. The Department of Transportation and Communication is the primary policy, planning, programming, coordinating, implementing, regulating, and administrative entity of the executive branch of the government in the promotion, development, and regulation of dependable and coordinated networks of transportation and communication systems, as well as the fast, safe, efficient, and reliable postal transportation and communication services. Department of Trade and Industry. Under Executive Order 133, which remains effective up to the present time, the Department of Trade and Industry serves as the primary coordinative, promotive, and facilitative arm for trade, industry, and investment activities. It acts as the catalyst for intensified private sector activity to accelerate and sustain economic growth through a comprehensive industrial growth strategy, a progressive and socially responsible liberalization and deregulation program, and policies designed for the expansion and diversification of both domestic and foreign trade. The end goal is to grow and expand Philippine trade and industry as the means to generate jobs and raise incomes so that Filipinos may enjoy continuing improvements in their quality of life. Philippine Economic Zone Authority. Republic Act No. 7916 creating the Philippine Economic Zone Authority, or PEZA, was enacted on July 25, 1994, with the following objectives such as to establish the legal framework and mechanism for the integration, coordination, planning, and monitoring of special economic zones, industrial estates or parks, export processing zones, and other economic zones. The next is to transform selected areas in the country into highly developed agro-industrial then commercial, tourist, banking, investment, and financial centers where highly trained workers and efficient services will be available to commercial enterprises. The next is to promote the flow of investors, both foreign and local, into special economic zones which would generate employment opportunities and establish backward and forward linkages among industries in and around economic zones. Next is to stimulate the repatriation of Filipino capital by providing attractive climate and incentives for business activity, and to promote financial and industrial cooperation between the Philippines and industrialized countries through technologies-intensive industries that will modernize the country's industrial sector and improve productivity levels by utilizing new technological and managerial know-how. And lastly, is to vest the special economic zones on certain areas thereof with the status of a separate customs territory within the framework of the Constitution and the national sovereignty and territorial integrity of the Philippines. Department of Foreign Affairs, or DFA. The Department of Foreign Affairs is the prime agency of government responsible for the pursuit of the state's foreign policy and the nerve center for a foreign service worthy of the trust and pride of every Filipino. The history of the Republic of the Philippines and that of the DFA are intertwined, and it is difficult to discuss the important events making the passage of the years at the department without somehow anchoring these to the rise of the Philippines as an independent nation. Department of Interior and Local Government. The Department of Interior and Local Government has the following functions: assist the President in the exercise of general supervision over local governments, advise the President in the promulgation of policies, rules, regulation, and other issuances on the general supervision over the local governments and on public order and safety. Establish and prescribe rules, regulations, and other issuances, implementing laws on public order and safety, the general supervision over local governments, and the promotion of local autonomy and community empowerment, and monitor compliance thereof. The next is to provide assistance towards legislation regarding local governments, law enforcement, and public safety. Next is to establish and prescribe plans, policies, programs, and projects to promote peace and order, ensure public safety, and further strengthen the administrative, technical, and fiscal capabilities of local government offices and personnel. Then, formulate plans, policies, and programs which will meet local emergencies arising from natural and man-made disasters. Next is to establish a system of coordination and cooperation among the citizenry, local executives, and the department to ensure effective and efficient delivery of basic services to the public. And then lastly is to organize, train, and equip primarily for the performance of police functions, a police force that is national in scope and civilian in character. Bureau of Food and Drugs. The Bureau of Food and Drugs is an attached agency under the Department of Health in charge of the registration and of processed foods, drugs, medical devices, in vitro diagnostic regions, cosmetics, and household hazardous substance products, in case these products will have to be hand carried or mailed for personal consumption abroad. The consumers may go directly to the BFAD Policy Planning and Advocacy Division, the Public Assistance and Compliance Division. The consumers are advised to bring verification, product samples, and a doctor's prescription for prescription drug products. Establishment involved in the manufacture, packaging, repacking, importation, exportation, distribution, and retailing of processed foods, drugs, medical devices in vitro diagnostic regions, cosmetics, and household hazardous substance products must secure a license to operate from BFAD. Bureau of Customs under Republic Act 1937 on June 22, 1957, entitled Revising the Tariff and Custom Laws, the General Duties as amended by the Republic Act of number 9135 dated April 27, 2001. The powers and jurisdiction of the Bureau shall include: number 1, assess and collect lawful revenues; 2, prevent smuggling and other frauds; 3, control vessels or aircrafts doing foreign trade; 4, enforce tariff and custom laws; 5, control the handling of foreign mails for revenues and prevention purposes; 6, control import and export cargoes; and 7, jurisdiction over forfeiture and seizure cases. The Philippine Coast Guard. By virtue of Republic Act number 5173, the Philippine Coast Guard has been created as an attached agency of the Department of Transportation and Communication with the following objectives: A, to enforce or assist in the enforcement of all applicable laws upon the high seas and waters subject to the jurisdiction of the Republic of the Philippines; B, to enforce laws promulgated and administer regulation for the promotion of safety of life and property within the maritime jurisdiction of the Philippines; and lastly is to develop, establish, maintain, and operate with due regard to the requirements of national defense, aids to maritime navigation and rescue facilities for the promotion of safety and on over the high seas and waters subject to the jurisdiction of the Philippines. Professional Regulatory Board for Custom Brokers. Pursuant to the national policy, the government shall provide a program to set up a climate conducive to the practice of the profession and maximize the capability and potential of our Filipino custom brokers. Hence, Republic Act number 9280 on March 30, 2004 was enacted regulating the practice of custom brokers profession in the Philippines and creating the Professional Regulatory Board for Custom Brokers. Nayong Pilipino Foundation. The Nayong Filipino Foundation was created under PD number 37 on November 16, 1972 with the intention of promoting, encouraging, and initiating research and development projects and activities in social sciences, humanities, social amelioration, and allied fields. The foundation is a non-stock, non-profit public corporation organized, established, and operated in the public interest, and no portion of its funds and income shall inure to benefit of if any of its members. Tourism Enterprise Zone Authority or TEZA. Under the Tourism Act, the Tourism Enterprise Zone Authority is empowered to administer tourism zones, regulate tourism zone enterprises, and grant tax. So, let's end this topic on this quote by Winston Churchill. So, It is success is not final. Failure is not fatal. It is the courage to continue that counts. So this quote by Winston Churchill is emphasizes that success and failure are both temporary. Neither defines a person permanently. What truly matters is the courage and perseverance to keep them moving forward despite the challenges. So that's all for my report from the topic the tourism public sector and chapter 6. So once again, I'm Jade Claire G. Downing from BSHM 3A, and thank you so much for listening.